Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. Have you ever struggled to meet a goal? Was it maybe because you weren't exactly clear on what it was that you wanted in the first place? If so, you'll want to listen to this episode, which is part 2 of my conversation with Hattie-Angelys Fox. She talks about how she teaches her clients and families to adopt behaviors that align with their goals and values. Recently diagnosed as autistic, Hattie-Angelys Fox is a certified teacher, a board-certified behavior analyst, and the mother of 2 neurodivergent children. Through her consulting services at Naturally Effective Behavior, Angelys offers a variety of support for individuals and families, including ABA, behavioral support, education and advocacy, educational enrichment, parent training, and professional development. In this conversation, among other things, we discuss how working with an autistic student as a teacher's assistant influenced Angelys' career path early on, different ways she works with families, Angelys' approach to caregiver training, and advice for other neurodivergent parents. In this episode, discover what's possible when you find your values. And now, I present you Hattie-Angelys Fox. Let's talk about your work. You mentioned that you were a paraprofessional at some point, right? Mm-hmm. How did you get into the field of autism services?
I was a paraprofessional in a local school district. My mother actually happened to be a principal in the district, but did not work in her building. And I was working for a teacher who, just me and the teacher were very, very, very misaligned. So by the end of that first school year, I applied to other para positions in the district. And in the other not the others, there was multiple elementary school. There were 2 positions available. One was in math, and one was to work with this autistic kid whose parents had pressured the district through free and appropriate law, to have him accepted into the school system. And I looked at the principal, who I had a good relationship with, and I said, "Does it involve math?" She said, "No." So I need to let you know, he's not toilet trained. You cannot change his diapers. You won't be expected to. I do not expect that he will last. And I don't know that I'll have a position for you if he gets removed from district. I said, "Is there math?" She said, "No." I said, "I'll work with him." I did not know what autism meant. I went home and did some research, which really meant nothing because I just saw all sorts of words and I was like, all right, none of this tells me who this kid is going to be. And at the time, I wasn't on campus, so I couldn't look at his IEP because TAs, we can't take them home. It wasn't digitized yet. We couldn't have access, yada, yada. So I meet this lovely young man. I'm his one-on-one. He doesn't want to make eye contact. He's got fully functional vocal verbal repertoire, but doesn't care to use it. Which really presented to me as like, he couldn't be bothered to talk to the people who were talking to him. Not that he didn't know how to talk. So I was just like, all right, well, what do you want to talk about? And then game on. I was able to get him assessed through all of and my teacher was phenomenal. She would just keep handing me worksheets. We had a bundle like this. This kid blew through it in minutes. So then I was like, all right, what are his other goals? And she's like, well, making eye contact and responding to other people's questions. And so I was like, all right, listen, do you want to sit in class all day? He's like, no. I'm like, so if you get this done, that's the work the teachers are saying you have to do. We'll go for walks. We'll just go wander. I don't care. We can go wherever you want. And so that became I just instinctively started working on his goals. We would go visit the nurse and I'd be like, hey, could you give this to her? Look, she's on the phone. You have to wait. And so I was teaching these social rules by just embedding him in the spaces. And I didn't really want to look at them and I never made him. It wasn't important. He did start giving me eye contact really fast. And I would be the only person he would give eye contact to. As I said, my mother was a school district principal. Well, this year she ends up being a school district administrator. So she's floating between buildings. My mother and I look exactly alike. Mm-hmm. So my mother looks like, here you go. My mother walked in the room and I remember looking at my student and saying, and my maiden name was O'Farrell. I said, sweetheart, Miss O'Farrell is here. Would you like to meet her? And he looked at me and I was like, no, Mrs. O'Farrell. She's here. You want to meet her? And he looked up and he saw the same face. And my mother was the first person he gave eye contact to spontaneously.
Oh. He was like, what is happening here? Is this like
Exactly.
an optical illusion?
That. And I was like, yeah. So we talked about it for the rest of the day. And as a TA, you don't get paid for vacations. You don't get paid for holidays. You don't get paid for summers. And I couldn't afford that because I was going to school. So I explored a facility that treated specifically autistic preschoolers. But the model was lovely because they had a 6135 in the building. They had a 812 in the building, and they had an integrated preschool.
Can you describe what those mean?
Yeah, so those are ratios of students to teachers. So 6135 is 6 students, 1 teacher, and 3.5 assistants. That half is split between 2 rooms. So morning in one room, afternoon in the other. It's a really high intensity classroom. That means that we've got the flexibility to really provide shadowing, prompting, or direct one-on-one instruction as necessary. Those children often require higher support needs. They may require someone to sit one-on-one with them so that they can consume their food well. They may require toileting supports as well as bathrooming supports or changing diapers. Our 812s, you're getting closer to a bit of a normal preschool ratio. So you still have 8 students at that point, 1 teacher and 2 assistants. Those rooms are running a little bit more like what you would see as a preschool classroom, but we still had some spaces in those rooms where we could do a little bit more of an intensive one-on-one instruction. So maybe a child really was unsure in something, we could provide some practice or play a game to do it or like build that skill somewhere. And then we had regular preschool rooms. As an integrated preschool room, we had 12 students, 2 aides. 6 of our students would have IEPs and 6 of our students were community members. And so I loved being in that facility because we had a very, very wide array of supports we could offer our learners. And we were able to take a learner from those more intensive rooms up into a less intensive space. If I've got a kid in the 6th room who's eating independently, then I'm going to bring him down to the integrated room for lunch. I'm not throwing off their ratio because I'm with him. I'm serving as a one-on-one. I've maintained the legal ratio for those kids, and I'm just there to shadow my learner and let him have a normative lunch experience with children who don't need high supports. And maybe now there's an opportunity to engage in requesting or do something else or share something that maybe they get shared. If I've got a learner who's just starting to learn how to do circle time activities, maybe I bring them up into the 8 room where the circle time is more dynamic and more along the lines of what one might look like in a typical preschool, and letting him have a little bit more stimulation. Even just the number of children, even that wait is now going to be a little bit longer. He's not waiting for 5 kids to go before he has to go. He's waiting for 7 kids before he has to go. So we were really able to titrate things up and play a bit. And we had a lot of success for some of those kids, you know. Mm-hmm. Knowing now what I know now, there's a lot more we could have done. But knowing then what I knew then, it was a pretty dynamic, well thought out model.
Okay, got it. And so eventually you decided to further your education and become a BCBA.
Yep. Yeah. So I moved out of that situation. And in that school, I decided what I wanted to be was a BCBA. This is at the time we didn't even have BCBAs in the state of New York yet. It was something that was starting to happen across the country. And I had kind of learned the system of that school. So I wanted to be someplace else. I went to another facility that was actually opening a behavior analytics school specifically for autistic children from preschool to 21. We had 4 classrooms in the basement of a church. It was an amazing facility. We had a lot of things go wrong in that place. We had a lot of things go incredibly right in that place. And over the course of time, I actually ended up being contacted by a very affluent family and hired for them directly. And it was that hiring that allowed me to go to school for my master's. At the time for me, there was no master's in behavior analysis. You had to hold a master's already, and then you could go for your advanced certificate in autism or in behavior analysis. So I finished my master's in education and special education, 1st through 2nd grade, by working with this family. I was able to afford it as well as have an income and the time necessary. Completed his program, and I ended up going into that child's school. And I did my 3 years running a 6135 myself, but this was a private school and it was a separated school. So all of our children were high support needs. We did a lot of normative things for them as well, though. We tried to keep lunchtime normal. We created a cafeteria for them. They opened a school store. So we brought a lot of different unique experiences. Our children in that school would cook lunches. Like you could order if you wanted macaroni. They would come around with a menu. You could have macaroni and cheese, chicken tenders, and they were the ones who prepared it, our vocational kids, so it was a really, really cool school. And I did 3 years, but I knew I didn't want to stay in the school system. I love supporting high support needs humans. And I did not feel that I could do the things that were most life impactful for them on the inside of the school system. For an example, I would have children with reading and writing and arithmetic goals because they're second graders. They have to, by law, have those kinds of goals. But these are learners who are showing signs of ARFID, who are lethargic, who are engaging in a rate of stereotypy that is disruptive to them engaging with the world around them and maybe aren't toilet trained. I really would rather deal with your sensory supports, helping you to regulate, bringing you into alignment, than teaching you that this letter is A. So I did not stay in the classroom. In New York, I need to do 3 years to move my license into something that is sustainable. So I did that. And then I got pregnant and I left. And while having a newborn, I did my advanced certificate in autism at Florida Institute for Technology's online program.
Okay.
And passed my exam on the first time. And my field experience was wide and varied, from running research to program moderation and mediations and a whole bunch of things in between.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so last time, Angelys, during our pre-interview, you mentioned that you did some work with adolescents, or is it that you work with adolescents now?
I do work with them now, but I have worked with them before. I love working with adolescents and young adults.
Okay.
Which sounds so contraindicated because, right, my degree's in early childhood. There's a reason, though.
Right. And so now with your work, naturally effective behavior, what kinds of services do you offer families?
Oh, it really depends. I have a long-standing client who I am doing comprehensive work for. So that learner I've actually had since he was a young child, and we've done language acquisition work, sensory support work, self-care, pre-vocational things, and been able to actually help him learn the skills necessary to fully participate in his family's life. Forgive me if I get emotional. This is a very affluent family. The things they are capable of giving their children are exquisite and beautiful in ways that I cannot articulate. But this young man, really was not able to be a part of it for most of his life. And on November, I watched him walk down his sister's aisle for her wedding. Oh. And that would have been not even remotely attainable a few years ago. So not only did he walk down the aisle, but he partied and danced and was happy and felt safe. There's no bigger reward for me than that. The paycheck's how I can do it, but it's not the why.
Yeah.
But with other learners, it's usually smaller support cases because of my own household's needs and my children. So I just helped a mom of 2 twins with a sleep regression. I've got another mom who has a neurodivergent homeschooled daughter who was struggling with organizational stuff. So we did a respectful and dignified decluttering and then used some visual strategies to increase the independence of the teen. Mom sets out what the tasks are, but the teen is the one ordering those tasks for her day. And they are coming together to identify new tasks that might need to be added or broken down further. There's another gentleman who I have been supporting him and his mom. He is homeschooled. He is looking to make more friends. So with him and I, we discussed what that means for him, what he's valuing in friendship, and giving him some information about what would be a healthy or an unhealthy connection between him and somebody else. And for mom, it's making sure that she's hearing what her son wants, loving family. They want to hear each other. The way they word things, sometimes they miss each other. She's very concerned about the bullying of public school and the cliquishness. And so the concession they came to was a private Waldorf school. Smaller class sizes, higher supports from the teachers, a gentler sensory environment. So he won't be quite so overstimulated by the sharpness of bells and things like that. And again, privileges. We were looking at what are your privileges, what are your advantages, what are your goals, what are the resources available, how can we allocate them for you towards what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the kids that I've worked with. I've got a semi-long-term client. She is prepubescent, was diagnosed with selective mutism and ADHD initially. And as of last year, she also received her ASD diagnosis, which fits very well with her. We're working on noticing her interception. For her experience is that she goes from 0 to nothing, but it's not. I can see markers along the way. What I'm realizing is that she doesn't feel them. So I'm working with her a lot on her own noticing of herself. Like, oh, do you notice your hands are closed? That's one of those things that's you're feeling yucky. Can you figure out what you're feeling yucky about? Do you notice your shoulders are high? Like you're feeling tense. What are you feeling tense about? You don't know? Okay, how do you want to take a break? Right? Because she'll go from no to here, and then her hands are flowing. And that's not who she wants to be.
Right.
I have her consent and her mom's to say the following. I got a phone call from her. They were traveling. It was a session right before they had to leave. Her anxiety is extremely high. She's telling me it's high. Angelys, we have 24 hours to fix something. What, dear? My patience. 24 hours. Okay. What are you concerned about? I am not going to hit my brother on this trip. I was like, this is a great goal. I'm in. Let's go. We got it done, though. Yeah. I did. I stayed up late and I made a whole bunch of visuals for her and I sent them over to mom and I worked out a bunch of rules and I knew what her bedtime was. And I said, I called mom. I was like, can I call her back in an hour? I just want to write some stuff out and like run it by her. Yeah. And she did it. She drove from her home in upstate New York to North Carolina, stayed with her family and got back and never put her hand on anybody.
Oh, wow. That's a success story.
Yeah.
Hey, Rachel here. I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Loru22, for reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. They said, quote, "What a wonderful podcast with such a great resource of inspiration, ideas, and information. There is such a great variety in the guests and backgrounds, and each individual story contributes beautifully to the podcast as a whole. I loved hearing each and every interview and enjoyed expanding my knowledge through every listen. Highly recommend." End quote. Thank you for the kind words, Loru22. 5-star reviews like yours help us continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. If you're also finding value in Autism Knows No Borders, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the conversation. So, Angelys, could you talk about your approach when it comes to caregiver training, especially when trying to regulate some parents so that they can teach?
Yeah, dysregulated people don't learn. Period, point blank, end of story. It has nothing to do with our neurotype. Dysregulated people don't learn. So oftentimes I'm going to initiate with parents and ask for their time and attention. That first 3-5 sessions is almost about them. Why am I here? What made you want me here? What are you expecting to come out of this? And those questions are very much geared up. What do you value? What's important to you? They might become as pointed as, so on a perfect day, what would it look like? How far are you from your perfect days? What makes that happen? What are you scared about? I find that making people feel seen and heard makes them want to do the work on their side of the bridge. It also makes sure that the work that I'm doing is building them the bridge they want. I love my clients. I would keep every single one of them. And I love their families. I don't know if you've ever got to see the movie Nanny McPhee, but it's sort of, I feel like that's the life of a good behavior analyst.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. When you need me, but don't want me, it's when I kind of have to be here. But when you wish I was with you all the time, you don't really need me anymore. And it's time for me to go. I know that I'm walking into a family. If I'm being invited into somebody's most intimate spaces, that family's in crisis. Nobody wants to show anybody their crisis. Nobody wants to say, I can't make my bed or eat or shower or brush my teeth, or I just held my kid down because they were trying to attack a sibling. It's terrifying for them. So I try to stay soft and gentle and ask them, like, why am I here and what do you need? not looking at their kid and going, oh, he has to talk more, or she needs to do this. Like, I start with the leaders of the household because they are, funny enough, the leaders of that household, and giving them back their dignity. So I actually do a workshop. I do a CEU or compassionate care for caregivers. And I do believe it is a job you cannot understand until you're doing it. You will simultaneously be the most angry you've ever been in your life and the most melty, smushy you've ever been in your life. And it'll be all targeted at the same human. It's a wild feeling. I'm one of those parents who I liked labor. I liked labor because I knew within hours I was going to madly fall in love. And I did every single time. That first look at this tiny, perfect person that your mistakes are going to impact them. You just want to do your best. And so when I walk into a caregiver's house, they know they're not doing their best, and they're exhausted and they're tired, and they may be being criticized by everyone around them. They need an ally.
Yeah.
And permission, but not permission to not change. Permission to have the feeling and then help change in the direction they want to go.
Yeah.
So, that's where I like to start with caregivers. What are you looking for? I've sat down with a caregiver and broken down hours. Her kid was in rehab, school, the whole nine. And she's like, I'm never with them. And I was like, all right, we literally mapped out the child's week. And I was able to show mom that she had 5 hours more than every other person. And she still mattered most. So what did she want for her kid?
Yeah, it's more than just getting buy-in, right? It's like there's trust that's involved also between practitioner and all stakeholders involved, really. Do you think that your approach in general changed after you got your diagnosis?
Not particularly. And for me, it made more sense. Like I said, my very first student looked at me, but no one else. I've always been colloquially empathic. If it's just me one-on-one with somebody, I can kind of make them feel really soothed and get them talking to me in whatever way that was for them. And that never really changed. It just made more sense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why.
Right.
For me now, I tend to choose to be around neurodivergent professionals because I don't have to work as hard to do the thing that's expected by societal terms, but I'm not unwilling to work with anyone.
Mm-hmm. All right, Angelys, I'm going to close with just one last question. What advice would you give to other parents, maybe specifically other neurodivergent parents?
There's 2 parts. I think the first thing would be acceptance. And I don't mean like giving up things that are hard, like, oh, it's hard, so just accept it's hard. No, I mean, accept yourself and then build a world for yourself that works for yourself. If you can't handle bright lights and you have the resources to soften them down, do it. If you don't like certain clothes, don't make yourself wear them. Like, stay regulated. Stay true to yourself. Accept who you are. And then the next one is find your values. Like, what's the mark you want to leave on the world, on your kids, and let those 2 things grow together. I'm sitting here and it's all off camera, but I have about 1,000 little things if I needed to touch them. My hands have been down because I've been playing with a piece of fidget jewelry, but it's beautiful. It's handcrafted silver. My best friend is a silversmith, and they're all things that mean something to me. But I knew I needed something to just get some extra motion out so I could sit still, focused on the camera. And I've been just playing with tinkly little pieces of silver. I look like an adult. I presented my body the way I wanted to, and I honored my sensory needs in the same breath. So that acceptance piece, and then my values were to show up and to share any part of my life or my life's experience that can benefit someone else, whether it makes them feel seen or heard or not alone or sparks an idea or strategy. Then I did what I wanted.
Right. And then from that self-acceptance, you can transfer that over to your children.
Because you're modeling it too, right? I can't make you accept you. I can accept you, and I can show you that I accept me. I don't make an internal thing occur, but I can accept that you're sad and I can give you space for sadness. And in doing so, I teach you that sadness is an emotion that happens and you're allowed to have it. I don't make you be gleeful or full of joy, but I can see it and I can recognize it and I can talk about it and I can give you space to express it.
Right. Well, that's great advice. Thank you. And how can people learn more about you?
So I'm contactable on Facebook and I'm on Instagram at Naturally Effective Behavior. My email is naturallyeffectivebehavior@gmail.com. And they can also visit my website at Naturally Effective Behavior.
Okay. And we'll put those links in our show notes.
Thank you so much. And this was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to support our mission, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. You'll be helping us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. Thanks for listening. Take care.